Join me on The Whitney Reynolds Show as we bring awareness to animal cruelty. The Respiratory Health Association is a proud supporter of The Whitney Reynolds Show, raising funds and awareness for lung disease research and programs. Hello and welcome to The Whitney Reynolds Show. Here on the show, we talk about important topics. And this week, we're helping our four-legged friends who do not have a voice. We are talking puppy mills. You're watching The Whitney Reynolds Show. Carrie Myers is the founder and president of the Puppy Mill Project, a nonprofit organization that strives to raise awareness about and eliminate puppy mills. Welcome to the show, Carrie.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you here because you know a lot about puppy mills, and that's today's topic.
Well, I think that, most people, I would say 70%, I think, of the population is the statistic now. They do not even know what a puppy mill is. So our job is to get out there, get into the schools, get into the expo, any way we can to tell the public, the consumers, about the connection between the pet store puppies and the puppy mills.
Well, in case our viewers at home do not know what a puppy mill is, what exactly defines this kind of operation?
Well, it's a commercial breeding facility that's breeding puppies for profit, with no care taken for their health. There's no socialization. They're not let out of their cages, probably for their whole life, except to breed. And it's a very cruel industry. It's really large-scale animal cruelty.
So if you could paint a picture of what we might see if we would go into a mill, would it be multiple dogs in a cage? Like, what are we, not a good environment? Like, what are we looking at?
Well, absolutely multiple. I mean, the Animal Welfare Act states that you can have a dog in a cage with only 6 inches around, 6 inches longer than its tail, higher than its head. And what they don't specify is how many dogs can be in that cage. So absolutely multiple dogs, wire flooring, so you have dogs that have splayed paws from trying to maneuver, dogs that have their paws go through the cages, adequate food and water, which is the law, but what does adequate mean? Different for you, different for me. So they're on the low end of the scale in their food, in their water. Nobody's touching them. They're very much like little prisoners.
How do the breeders, how do they expect that to make them money? If they have these dogs that are not treated right, people wouldn't want to buy them, right?
These aren't the dogs they're making the money on. They are, because these are the breeding dogs. They're selling the puppies of these dogs. The females they're bred every 6 months. Every time that dog comes into heat, she's bred. And they'll breed them till they die, basically. Or sometimes they have another fate worse or as bad as the puppy mill. They go to auction or they kill them because they can't spend the money on them any longer.
What developed your heart for this? I know that you have not always been with the Puppy Mill Project. And so where did you kind of find this, I want to take this on as my thing?
Well, really, we've only been doing this for 5 years. And previous to that, I'd been on the board of different rescues, one in Chicago, a large no-kill. And I had, for whatever reason, and I do not know why this happened, I started reading about puppy mills, because I didn't know about puppy mills either. And the more I read, the more I was just in total disbelief that this is legal. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry in our country. And when I read this, and then I was looking all over the internet, and I came upon one website that really described what goes on in a puppy mill. And I said, I was at a board meeting for this other organization, and I thought, you know what? Nobody's talking about puppy mills. Nobody knows about puppy mills. And I just felt that I had to do something about it. And I left that organization. And I decided I was going to start something and founded the Puppy Mill Project, and was very fortunate to have some believers that came along with me.
So how do you know if it's a puppy mill dog? What should we keep an eye out for?
Well, you can almost guarantee if you're buying it in a pet store, it's a puppy mill dog, no matter what they tell you. That dog probably, 99%. And if people want to take a chance on the 1%, that's fine. But 99% have come from mills and online as well. So it's like, okay, you're going out to buy a car. People do more research on their cars than they do for their new family member. I mean, our choice always is to rescue. Or if you want a specific breed, you go to a breed-specific rescue. If that's not your thing and you want to go to a breeder for whatever reason, you have to research the breeders. You go to breed clubs to find the right breeder. You have to be able to go to the facility to see the dog's mother, hopefully the father. These are dogs that are bred for love. They're not bred for profit. You are in someone's home or at the facility.
Yeah, I'm feeling like a bad dog owner right now. I'm thinking back to whenever I got my dog 10 years ago, and I did not do that kind of research. So I'm sure a lot of our viewers at home are thinking the same thing. So you're saying really just research what, like you said, just like you would a car, find out, because they ultimately become family members. So tell us about the Puppy Mill Project. You're doing this book where you include local celebrities and their dogs. I was actually involved with the book, which is really fun because you were able to come in and take pictures of different dogs, and I've been seeing everyone else all across Chicagoland involved with it. So tell us about what this book is aimed to do.
Well, it's not just dogs, it's all kinds of pets. We've had, 2 weeks ago, we had alpacas, I beg your pardon, 2 alpacas, and we've done lizards. I mean, it's whatever, people love their pets. So this book actually came to the Puppy Mill Project through someone who had done it in New York, a fabulous guy, and he had done the New York City Pet Project as a way to raise funds for various rescues. That was his thing. It was presented to us because he liked what we were doing, and the reason we're doing it is we hope to sell 1 million of these books, of course, and all the profits will go to what we call Millie's Mission. Millie is my puppy mill dog, and she lived in a cage for her whole life, 8 years. So we're still working on getting her to be a dog. So all the funds will come to Millie's Mission, which will go to the veterinary costs, which are always exorbitant for the mill dogs. When you rescue a mill dog, there are issues right away. My dog had 13 teeth pulled. She had a complete hysterectomy. She's got this and that. This one dog. So the rescues can't afford to pull them. They don't have the money. I want to be in the position when someone calls me and says, we can rescue 20 mill dogs tomorrow. Can we do it? And I want to be able to say, yeah, do it. Do 30, do 50. And I want to be able to give them the money to go get these dogs. And that's what this book is for. So we are having a fantastic time photographing all kinds of amazing people who have led us into their lives, like you did, a little puffy girl. They're being just so generous with their time, with their homes, with their animals. It's been amazing. It's a great experience for us.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see the book when it comes out. And then you are also working on laws to be put in place.
Well, yeah, this was a big year. One of the things I wanted to do when we first started, we had a wish list, was to get the city of Chicago to be a humane city and to get rid of all the pet stores, buying the puppy mill dogs. We want to change them to a humane model where they will have rescue dogs. They can still be open. You don't have to close your business. There's a lot of successful pet stores that never sold an animal, and they're doing just fine. So we wanted to help them do that, and we got a lot of resistance. So we started writing an ordinance. So we worked with Susanna Mendoza, the city clerk of Chicago, and we got the Companion Animal and Consumer Protection Law passed for the city, which will take effect in March. And then from there, we worked with Commissioner Fritchie, one of the Cook County commissioners, to pass a law for all of Cook County, which unfortunately 3 pet stores have filed suit against the state's attorney now to stop this from going forward.
Wow, so a lot of progress. It's amazing how one person's mission can make some major change. So thank you so much for coming on. We're going to talk a little bit more about those laws in just a little bit, but thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It's now time for our social sizzle, and this week we wanted to show you a video that raised a ton of awareness on Facebook and Twitter about treatment of our animals.
We first found Ellen. We actually didn't know if she was alive. She was not moving in her cage. And once we were able to get her to walk on her own, we took her to Unleash for the evening so she could rest. The next day, we took her to get groomed, and she pretty much came to life after that. The hardest part was going over the emotional part. The trauma for her, I think, was a bit much, but as you can see today, she runs around and is doing really great.
We had so many people that were interested in adopting her, like not only throughout the US, but also from Greece and Australia and Chile and the UK, Mexico. I mean, it was amazing. We honestly just went through and picked out people that either had another dog, because we knew that she liked other dogs quite a bit after living at Sue's house with her foster siblings. So we went through and picked out dogs, people that lived sort of nearby, and then just set up intros. So it was hard to, like, the process of elimination was definitely overwhelming. She literally looked at Linus, and the two of them were just running around, like, immediately, which was so incredibly sweet, and you could tell it helped her gain a little confidence, and then, like, you know, slowly but surely she warmed up to them quite quickly.
To know that we took a dog that, you know, was going to be euthanized and had given up, you know, it's just given up, period, and to see her running around now, it's definitely one of the greatest, you know, accomplishments ever, and it's great to just know that you played a little part in that.
Isn't that an amazing video? We just had to share it. Now, a few fun facts that weren't mentioned. Her name is Ellen, after Ellen DeGeneres. And she also had over 200 people want to take her home and was adopted in September. Our next guest is Susana Mendoza, the first woman ever elected to the office of the city clerk. She, along with the Puppy Mill Project, worked to pass landmark legislation to ban the sale of puppy mill pets in city pet stores. I am here with Susana Mendoza. Thank you for having us in your office.
Welcome to City Hall. It's a great place to be.
So we have been talking about puppy mills and animals, and you are heavily involved with the Puppy Mill Project, and you actually passed legislation for it. Tell us a little bit about it.
So I teamed up with this amazingly brilliant woman who I believe you know, Carrie Myers, who's the leader of the Puppy Mill Project. She approached me soon after I got elected as city clerk and knew about my work in Springfield, working for animal rights issues, humane laws, and things of such, and asked me if I would consider taking this issue on at city council level. Now, historically, no clerk has ever really introduced legislation, but we do have the legal authority to do so. So when I ran for clerk, I kind of campaigned on the whole premise of being able to introduce legislation because I had spent 11 years in the Illinois legislature, and that's what I'm good at. I love it. And so she actually paid attention, and she came to see me early on and asked if that would be something that I'd want to get behind. And I told her it's a great idea. I mean, these are issues that I'm passionate about, I care about, and I think most Chicagoans do as well. So I used my experience in the legislature, knowing that no one would even suspect that I would be the one working on this legislation. And she educated me on all the facts and figures that I needed to know. And over a 2-year period with Carrie and a little coalition that she put together from her Puppy Mill Project team, we did all the research that we needed to do. We went about educating some key aldermen who also were able to keep the secret. And about 2.5 years into my term or so, we went ahead and introduced this legislation, caught the entire industry by surprise. And I worked the chamber floor as if I was still in the legislature, which meant I talked to every single alderman, educated them all on this issue. And by the time I actually filed the legislation, we had 47 co-sponsors on it. So it was like, take that, how do you like them apples, right? So make a long story short, that's how we were able to be successful in the city of Chicago. By the time the puppy mill industry found out about it, we gave them very little time to actually try to influence with money people's opinions on this issue. We had 47 co-sponsors on this, and they were going to have to look to fight the fight elsewhere. But I'm super proud of what we did here. Chicago is now a national leader, and I would say in large part thanks to Carrie Myers for being compassionate and passing humane laws when it comes to animal welfare. So very, very proud of what we've done here in the city.
What does it look like in case people at home are wondering, like, okay, you passed it, but what does this mean for us?
Very good. So starting July 1st this year, Chicago pet stores will no longer be allowed to legally sell dogs, cats, or rabbits unless if those animals are sourced from humane organizations. For example, animal care and control, animal shelters, or rescue organizations. So no more dogs that are being brought over from these horrendous puppy mills. When a family goes to buy a dog in a store, right now they're doing so on an impulse purchase. They see this super cute little face and they think they're actually doing that puppy a favor by saving it or bringing it home and loving it, not realizing that they're probably going to spend $1,000 and upward for that animal, come home and realize that the animal, because of inbreeding or certain things that they're not aware of, has all kinds of health complications, end up spending thousands of dollars on vet bills, and if they don't want to spend that money, end up returning the dog, letting it loose, or it goes to an animal care and control facility. We highly encourage that you adopt. Go to an animal care and control facility. They have tons of animals that really want loving homes, and they're sometimes the best pets you can ever get. But please do not fall victim to the impulse purchase, because you're just feeding into an industry that is really, really horrific in its practices towards animals.
It's now time for the viewer's voice, where we take this week's topic to the streets. Our question this week is, what are your thoughts on animal cruelty?
Animal cruelty is really wrong. I have a dog. I rescued a dog from an animal shelter a couple years ago, and he was found abused in the woods. And I can't, after seeing like what a loving creature he is and how important he is to my family, I can't even imagine what he was.
I think animal cruelty is really kind of awkwardly necessary in our economy today, but I'm hoping that eventually we can work towards a better system to kind of dismantle more or less the industries that rely really heavily on animal cruelty.
Animal cruelty is one thing that can be easily ignored because there's a lack of empathy, as they're not people like us, but I think it's very important and vital to talk about.
Animal cruelty is overlooked, and there should be more action taken to control it.
Our next two guests are experts when it comes to health problems and puppy mills. Dr. Melissa Pales and Dr. Brett Grossman join us now from Veterinary Specialty Center. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we've been talking about puppy mills, and Melissa, you know a lot about the long-term care of these types of animals.
Yeah, a lot of the dogs that come from puppy mills will be born with defects that cause them to need longer-term care. So things like abnormal blood vessels in their liver that make their livers not develop properly, that might even require a surgery to fix, or other procedures, or can be managed medically but oftentimes not as successfully. Some of them can have heart defects that some can be fixed, some can't, and those can oftentimes really significantly impact the life of these animals, as well as some neurologic conditions that can be just malformations of their brain, or their brains weren't made properly before they were born, that can cause them to have seizures and other issues throughout their lives. So really some things that are pretty serious that families are having to address after they adopt these guys.
So you both are doctors at Veterinary Specialty Center. Brett, what have you seen whenever maybe parents, I call, because dogs are our kids, when they come in, what is some of the short-term effects that you've seen?
Well, so I deal in the emergency room, so I'm seeing a lot of these patients, clients coming in when they've had the pet for 2 or 3 days, and they take the dog home thinking that everything is going to be fine, and then things start developing. And a lot of times we'll see, dogs, puppies who are severely dehydrated. They have tons of parasites in them, so they have not been addressed, and so they become dehydrated. They become hypoglycemic, so metabolically unable to move properly, to digest things. They're vomiting. They're having diarrhea. All these very serious acute problems that need to be addressed immediately. And so I'm having to deal with a little bit of the explanations to what we talked about, what you were talking about before, having to deal with the explanations of why is their pet like this, and a lot of these people will get animals from pet stores and not realize that there is any potential to be a problem, because the medical records might say everything is normal, everything is healthy, and that's all they're going home with knowing.
Is there anything that people should look out for whenever they're buying these type of pets? Is there anything that would give them a sign that maybe this isn't a healthy dog?
Well, I think when you're talking about a puppy should act like a puppy. And that means, being generally happy and active and wanting to eat lots and lots of food. And just like a baby, they're very active. I mean, they also sleep, but, they shouldn't be sleeping throughout the day. I think, as the previous guest had mentioned, a lot of this has to do with research and knowing that, where one is getting their puppy is important and is connected, with not only that acute onset of clinical signs, but as Dr. Pales mentioned, for life expectancy and a prognosis for what the puppy will be able to, do in its life and will it be able to thrive.
So some of these dogs that come to you, their owners might say they've never had any type of problem. How can you determine if it was like puppy mill whenever they come in for these long-term effects?
A lot of times we can't say that specifically. We oftentimes will ask owners, where did you get this puppy? And they'll say, oh, I got it at such and such pet store, or, it was at the farmer's market or something along those lines. And those are oftentimes situations where we kind of make that leap of faith that they've come from a puppy mill, because they're not, oh, I went to this breeder and have these papers and this and that. So a lot of times it's more our inference than anything else that leads us to believe that that's where they've come from.
What is one of your most extreme examples of a potential puppy mill dog that has come in?
What's the most common thing is a disease called parvovirus, which is a virus that affects generally puppies who are immunocompromised, who haven't been vaccinated, who have been in stressful situations. And so I work right now at the clinic down at University of Illinois in Chicago, and even in the last, I'd say 2 or 3 weeks, we get like 3 or 4 a week that come in who are, so severely dehydrated and advanced in the disease itself that there's no saving them, even if the owners only had the puppy for 2 or 3 days. So, I just had a case a couple of days ago where, this was an owner who had bought 2 13-week-old puppies, and both of them had parvovirus. And so here was somebody who didn't have a lot of money, who spent, $300-400 on a puppy that he thought was healthy, and suddenly is faced with, potentially too much money in terms of what he could afford to treat an animal who potentially might not even make it.
Most of the time when people buy these dogs from a pet store, are they already vaccinated, or is that kind of up to the...
So generally the records are not very good. So a lot of times owners will bring me, honestly, like a lined note paper with handwriting on it that says, puppy completely vaccinated, completely healthy. And you don't know what the vaccinations were, you don't know what the deworming procedure protocol that they did, so you don't really know anything, and at least from what I always presume is that generally means they didn't do anything. And even if they get one vaccination, that doesn't mean that they're vaccinated yet. They're still able to, without their full shots, they're still able to transmit diseases to other dogs, or get those diseases from dogs in dog parks or in doggy daycare or from the environment.
So either way, no matter what, like if you're purchasing a dog, bring them on in just to make sure they are covered. Is there such thing as too many shots?
They can be over-vaccinated to an extent, but with a puppy, if you're not sure about their vaccine status, it's always safer to vaccinate them. One of the problems with these guys is that people love little puppies. We all do. And part of the lure of a pet store is that you can get a puppy that's maybe 5 or 6 weeks old. And a lot of people look at that and say, oh, I get to bond with this little newborn puppy. The problem with that is normally a puppy wouldn't even be totally weaned at that age. And so they're not getting the antibodies from their mom that would also provide them protection to kind of bridge that gap until they have, enough of an immune system to really respond to the vaccines. So it's a combination of being weaned and taken away from mom too early, not getting vaccinated appropriately at an early age, and then not having continued vaccines. And some of these guys are getting vaccinated at the puppy mills, and the vaccines are not refrigerated, they're expired, so they might be getting the vaccine, but who knows if that vaccine's even effective because it's not being stored and handled properly.
And one thing that's important that you just said was that a lot of puppy mills, they don't have veterinarians there, and they might say that they're getting medical treatment, but these are by people who aren't doctors, and there are some things that can be done by non-doctors and some things that need to be done, and an evaluation of disease is one of those things we need doctors for. One other thing too is that a lot of times these pet stores or breeders over the internet, wherever they're getting them from, they make stipulations when you buy them that you're not supposed to see a vet. I've seen people bring in contracts that say, if you go to a vet, you have null and voided all of the potential economic paying them back for anything that might happen. And so they'll go and specifically say, like, don't trust vets. Vets will overdiagnose things. Come back to us. And so I had a case of one person who bought a dog from, I think it was a breeder in Mississippi, and was told that they had to, like, wait a couple weeks to have someone from this organization assess the dog, and meanwhile the dog would have been dead by then.
Wow, so those are some red flags definitely to keep an eye out for. Well, I'm so glad both of you joined us here today with all this info. So basically, to sum it up again, whenever they're buying, ask about the history, and go ahead and bring them on into the vet to make sure everything's been covered.
Absolutely. Whenever you get a puppy, regardless of where you get the puppy from, or a kitten for that matter, you should always see a veterinarian within 24 to 48 hours to get them assessed and make sure that there's no red flags that we need to be worried about.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Melissa Pels and Dr. Brett Grossman, for joining us.
Thank you.
The Whitney Reynolds Show has always been very pet-friendly. We have featured dogs that are helping the world of physical and mental health. From diabetes to service dogs, we've had them on the set. But just like we need their help, they need ours. For more information on today's show, go to whitneyreynolds.com. The Respiratory Health Association is a proud supporter of The Whitney Reynolds Show, raising funds and awareness for lung disease research and programs.